In this episode, I want to dive into triggers because on my journey, when I really started to see triggers from a different perspective, it shifted so much for me because we've been conditioned to believe that being triggered is not such a good thing. And I get it because when we're triggered, it doesn't feel comfortable. And our instant response is to blame the other person for how we feel. Our instant response is to get defensive to prove that whatever that person said or that person did was wrong. They're wrong, we're right. And so, can we start to shift the perspective around triggers? Because what I learned, one of my favorite quotes by a mentor of mine, Peter Crone, is life and people will present you with opportunities to reveal where you're not free. And when I heard that, it just it really hit home. Like, that's what a trigger is. So shifting the perspective of this person's doing something that I don't agree with, that I don't believe, that I think is wrong, or saying something that I don't agree with or I think is wrong, and getting defensive about it. Can we lean in and see that a trigger is actually an opportunity to reveal something within us that we need to heal from? And when I started to see things from that perspective, every time I would get triggered afterwards, and at the beginning, I would still react, I would still get defensive, say things I didn't mean, but I would eventually go and sit down in meditation and explore, like, why did that trigger me? And the biggest thing that I found, the most common thing that I found when I would explore why I was triggered, especially if it was something my husband said, for example, was that deep down inside, I believed that he was actually right. What he said triggered me because consciously I wanted to argue that he's wrong, but subconsciously, deep down inside, I knew he was right and I didn't want to admit that. Of course not, because when we're triggered, we want to admit that we're right, they're wrong. But when I could humble myself and really explore, why did I get triggered? I realized it was because deep down inside, I believed it to be true. And so we start to get our power back when we recognize what is actually true and actually take responsibility for where we're at. And so for me, one of the things that my husband would say that would trigger me was that you're playing small. And I would get defensive because I'm like, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And, trying to defend myself, show him that I'm not playing small. But deep down inside, I knew that, yeah, I really was playing small. I wasn't showing up to my full potential. I was allowing the beliefs of I'm not enough, I'm not worthy to get in the way. And it caused me to go into overthinking. So I had to know all the details and figure it out and have it look a certain way and be a certain way before I actually took action and put something out into the world. Or when I did show up and didn't get the result that I wanted, I felt powerless, I felt defeated, and it validated the belief that I'm not good enough. And so there was this vicious cycle and pattern that I would operate from that kept me from showing up, from playing bigger, because I was just operating from fear that, yeah, I was going to fail. And failing meant that it was going to validate that I wasn't good enough. And you know what's crazy? I realized that even though I was afraid of taking action and failing, by not taking action meant that I could also fail too. I wasn't going to go anywhere either way. I realized how silly that sounded, and I was afraid to take action, and show up. I realized, well, by me not taking action, not showing up, it wasn't helping me get anywhere either. So I had to make a choice. I had to make a decision and recognize that, yeah, there's something that I needed to work on, that I needed to heal, that was so much deeper. And I share this because working with a client, she revealed when we started diving into mindset, she revealed to me that she thought she was a positive person. So when she listened to one of the episodes in Already Enough, my audio course, she realized that she would get triggered when her husband said she was being negative because consciously she believed she was a positive person. But when he was saying, "Hey, you're being negative," she got defensive because she wanted to prove he was wrong. But then when she dug into her subconscious mind, she started to realize she was being negative. She was being negative around her health and her fertility and other areas in her life. And so deep down inside, her husband was actually revealing the truth. She didn't want to admit it, but was revealing the truth that she was being negative. He was pointing out some things that she was being negative about, but she didn't want to admit that because consciously she thought she was a positive person. So that was such a powerful breakthrough for her to realize and recognize that, yeah, I actually am being negative. And the cool thing was that she now had the power, she now had the choice to continue thinking those negative thoughts, or now she could start to shift that negative thought into a more empowering thought. And she did. She started to become aware what those negative thoughts were, started shifting them into more empowering thoughts, and that resulted in her reacting less to her husband and even her son, and it also resulted in improvement in her mood. It was incredible to be able to see the shift, something so simple, but so powerful, and how that started to shift things in her life, especially the relationship she had with her own husband and her son. It's so simple, but again, like recognizing our triggers, shifting our perspective, like triggering is, the reason why we're triggered is because we think that person is wrong and we want to blame them for how we're really feeling inside, whether it is feeling frustrated or overwhelmed or anxious or shame or guilt or whatever. Because for me, the common theme was I was triggered and that resulted in me feeling shame or guilt about something. And so I needed to defend myself so I could feel better and prove that he was wrong. But deep down inside, again, when I sat with myself, explored, got curious to figure out where was this coming from? What did I actually need to heal? What did this reveal? I realized, I realized that, what he was saying was the truth. And I was able to do the work to heal from that. So if you find that you are constantly being triggered by certain people, again, that's an opportunity to reveal where you're not free. There's something so much deeper that you need to heal from. And one thing that I notice in this society, because for me, I'm a faith-based person and I am not afraid to talk about my faith in God, but there's a lot of people that have been hurt from certain religions and organizations that were, yeah, that were, um, believing in God, but they had terrible experiences resulting in them feeling a certain way. So anytime someone would talk about God, they would get triggered. And for me, it's like, okay, recognizing that not every religious organization is actually operating from a place of love. They're operating from a place of rules and regulations, which creates the separation between us and God. And if we can detach from that and actually learn who God is by diving into the Bible and finding other organizations, other groups that actually use this or focus on the approach that God is love and it's all about the relationship with God, things can start to shift and change. But at the end of the day, what I see is that if you're getting triggered because someone speaks about God, there's a lot of healing that you have to do inside. And that's because you're still holding on to things that happened in the past. Because once you're free from what happened to you in the past, it doesn't mean that, you're never going to remember. Like the memories are still going to be there, but you don't have to feel charged by it. You don't have to keep holding on to the emotions and what happened and allowing it to impact you physically in the body. You can actually be free from that. And so if you're open to diving deep and exploring that, that's what I'm here to do. So, yeah, on this journey, there's so many things, so many opportunities, things that are happening in our life, people, opportunities, circumstances, like Peter Crone says, that is going to trigger you. That's going to reveal where you're not free. So lean into that. And if you need help working through a trigger, that's what I'm here to help you to do. Reach out. I'm here to help you work through that. Send me a DM and let's chat. And in the meantime, shift your perspective around the trigger and it will change your life.